it just came across to me this morning, and I read about it briefly last week, but U.S. is declaring that airspace is closed over Venezuela or something to that effect. And they have encouraged Maduro to leave, like they're giving him a chance to leave now or face death or capture.
It just seems like in some instances, America takes too much. They try to police the entire world and they bully smaller nations.
Again, if we're taking the same position and the same attitude that we take at the UN, which is, okay, the United States is doing too much, why are we not all saying, okay, everybody, we understand that Venezuela is in trouble. It's spiraling into crisis. Maduro needs to be removed. We obviously know that. Everyone needs to come together and figure out what we're going to do here to help this country, because it's going to be a drag on the rest of the world. But instead, we're still asserting some type of imperialistic colonization. It's the same thing. We keep justifying spending resources out to gather resources when we should just continually look in and figure out how to work on ourselves from the inside out again, rather than trying to keep bleeding out and use these big noble causes as an excuse to bomb the shit out of somebody. The types of people that have been allowed in this country and are now infiltrating in this country don't respect the normal civil rule of law. Oh, it's a police officer. You got to respect that. And then we've also had these same political people that say that they want to keep cities safe. They've neutered their police departments and not allowed them to do what they need to do, because either they don't have the resources to do it and the backing to do it, or they're so afraid to do their job because they're afraid to get thrown in jail.
I think when you look at a person like Trump and his background in both business and in media, what he has learned is the power of story and of narrative. Crime wasn't going up in DC. It was down. And it's just unfortunate that those two people were killed, because what I don't want to get into the argument of saying, okay, well, if the National Guard weren't there, then those two people wouldn't have been killed, which is true. But that doesn't mean that person wouldn't have gone and shot a police officer.
Somebody else.
So I don't want to create a false equivalence. But it just rises, it brings into bear just the whole idea of having people in military personnel guarding our streets. I just don't like it. Why don't you just take everybody's guns away? Because if you took everybody's guns away, we'd be safer. And it's very easy to create a narrative to make people acquiesce. But in that process of acquiescence, we give up our rights and our freedoms, and rights and freedoms do come with the price. I just don't like the direction where the country's going, man. I don't at all.
I don't think the scary, and here's where you and I are going to diverge a little bit. I don't think that what you see now is the scary stuff. I think that's the in-your-face stuff that makes people think of what you're thinking of that was actually happening covertly during COVID. So the stuff that you're afraid of and the stuff you're talking of, you and I are both on the same page. NSA, surveillance, look, we've talked about this before. This here, if you have one of these, everyone knows, they know everything about you. If you have a smartphone, game over already. So stop privacy stuff as it. At this point in the world, the problem that we're having now is that too many people don't believe the facts that are being given anymore. And because the facts go, there's too much reasonable doubt within the facts now. So that means we just need to sprinkle a little bit more of the receipts in the world today.
Exactly.
They show the facts are 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 the facts. Just like, and I know it irritates a lot of people on the extreme left, a man is a man and a woman is a woman. And a man can't have a child. Sorry, it doesn't work that way. It never will. It never has. It can't.
The fact that there are stories out there that people care about, that people want to know more about, but because the news cycle moves so quickly, they move on. And I think the ability to be able to turn to a channel or a podcast or a media outlet that feeds you the information you're interested in, that's going to become the death of mainstream media. I give it 15 to 25 years. So when you look at job losses from the outside, it's very easy to throw numbers around because it's just statistical data points. What I try to think about is the husbands and wives that are mothers and fathers or young professionals that are trying to make a living in today's economy. And it's hard enough to make it when you're working. It's a whole thing entirely different when you have job insecurity and you're in a position where you lose your job entirely.
Healthcare continued to go up every year like it has been. So my question is, before we go back even more into why affordable healthcare is so effective, is the most effective part of, and I'm just asking for clarity because to me it hasn't made healthcare any more affordable. Has it just slowed the increase of the price every year?
I have an idea. So there are two elements of the Affordable Care Act that changed the landscape of healthcare. And one is that there were people with pre-existing conditions that didn't have access to healthcare. So one thing that the Affordable Care Act did.
Now that is important. I will sign off and say that should have been its own separate piece of legislation, because you shouldn't throw someone out automatically with health insurance. Now, life insurance, I get.
Sure.
But health insurance, bro, this is 2025.
Right, exactly.
Like, we're not going to let someone sick and die when we can afford to build what we build in America. And that comes back to a sovereign wealth fund that should take care of people.
I don't think healthcare should be left to the government, but I also believe that there should be a safety net for people who don't have the capacity 100%. To take care of themselves.
You also have the opportunity to go and make as much money as you want and have complete control over your level of care because you have built a fortune for yourself. So that to me is like, if you have the ability to do, that's why America's great, because you could do that.
Welcome to the Family Office, planning for the people who matter most.
Even a ribeye. I ordered something as simple as a ribeye steak at a restaurant we stopped in. It was on Bourbon Street. And the ribeye came out because I was just like, I just need some red meat. I need to get my intake here. And it was delicious. It wasn't like a regular like ribeye, like meaning the flavor, but the flavor was amazing. And anything I ate was awesome. And what I noticed is that once you got into the real deal, like the French Quarter and down in like Garden District and all those areas down there, you don't have like chain stuff. It's all local stuff. It's all mom and pop. And I think the biggest thing I could tell you, and this has been a really big trend. There's actually even been several people on YouTube and other platforms that have done like docu-series on this, the food industry in America today. And the biggest difference I could tell you is that when you eat there, regardless of where you're eating, it doesn't taste like it came off a food service truck. It tastes like somebody seasoned it and actually cooked it in the back in the kitchen versus you go to a majority of restaurants anywhere today, you're eating the same stuff. It's all coming off the back of a Cisco truck or a food service truck. There, it's not. And I mean, I walked my kids, I walked with all my kids, all 7 of them, up and down Bourbon Street up until about 6, 7 o'clock. Once you get past, and there's 2 college games in town too, so it was pretty busy. But once you get past like 5 or 6, it starts to get rowdy and you can't make a quick exit. So by that time you take the kids home and then you come back and then it's a blast. It's a blast. It's a blast. So if you've never had a chance to go, I never had been, I suggest you go. Went on a couple tours, did a museum, cemetery tour. So it was awesome.
Okay.
And the children got to experience something different, got to stay in a different city, different part of the country, experience that. And a lot of times people think they have to travel abroad in the United States to get, culture and get an experience. And you really have 50 states in the United States that all are vastly different. And if going to those hot spots within the states, like for example, what we're talking about here, New Orleans and Louisiana, actually really gives you a great opportunity to experience different cultures throughout the United States and different influences. I didn't realize how massive Western African influence, all the way down, all the way up still to today, on how people that you don't even, like for example, you'd see a Caucasian person that's raising his family there, and they are raising their family with West African traditions, and you wouldn't even know it, and they don't even know, because it's just
so ingrained, huh?
Right, because you had going all the way back to slavery, you had had African American women raising children regardless of what ethnicity they were. So these got no matter what into the culture, and you see it, and when you get down there, the race thing is really not. You don't see that there. It's very interesting to see that in that area of the world. It's pretty amazing to see how everybody comes together. It's pretty cool experience. If you've never gone, I highly suggest you go. And I don't think you have gone when we talked about it last time. So be pretty cool.
Yeah,
but a lot going on.
Thinking about yes,
a lot going on. A lot going on. But how was your holiday?
We kept it simple, so we had a chance to go visit our niece and nephew, and there was about 20 people there, and the kids were hanging out. And what's so crazy for me is, they have a nice household, very nice house. And I remember when my nephew was 4 years old. And so for him to have a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old is bonkers to me. And so it was just really nice just to sit back and relax and eat good food, watch a football game, and enjoy family. So it was really simple.
Uninterrupted, right? Uninterrupted.
Mm-hmm.
Always good. Well, coming off of I think probably the one of the most wild Novembers I can remember. Market conditions, the way they were, political things going on, the Epstein stuff. I mean, Mandami, the elections. I mean, peace, war and peace. There's just so much going on, and just when you think it's going to start cooling off, I don't even think we're talking about this today, but I have to bring it up because it just came across to me this morning, and I read about it briefly last week, but U.S. is declaring that airspace is closed over Venezuela or something to that effect. And they have encouraged Maduro to leave. Like they're giving him a chance to leave now or face death or capture. Like the word on the street is capture or kill. And they're giving him a chance to get out alive, him, his wife, and his son or something to that effect. Wow. And there's going to be some type of ground. China is not wanting to stop that. They're not against it. Russia's not in play anymore there. Iran's not in play in there. There's a lot going on there. I know we're not looking at that, but I just thought it'd be interesting to bring that up right now, considering it's a very important thing that's happening right now in the world right now. What do you think's going on there, Len?
Yeah, so I think when you look at the whole bombing of the boats that are coming in from Venezuela and just all of the controversy around that, because the real concern that I have just with that idea is, one, it's international waters. Two, you're talking about taking action without any type of process. There's no due process. And in fact, I heard of some fishermen that were killed, some Trinidadian fishermen that were in the area who were killed by a drone attack. And so when you look at an act like that, it just seems like in some instances, America takes too much. They try to police the entire world and they bully smaller nations. You know that if those boats were coming from China or coming from Russia, there was no way they'd be able to take that type of action because they have the backing of their country's military. Now, some of those boats may have been filled with people that sell drugs and bring drugs and fentanyl here into the United States. Okay, capture them and either deport them back, or you hold some type of court and give them their due process and give them the right penalties. So when you look at that, that was almost the excuse to be able to go to Venezuela and say, hey, listen, Maduro, you need to get out or we're going to bomb you and eventually kill you. I just think 1 + 1 in this case equals 3. And I just don't think that the right steps were taken. There's a lack of diplomacy. There's a lack of process. And there's also a disregard for the international rule of law. The ocean is international. And so we all have to abide by the same international rules. And so just because we have military might doesn't give us the right to act unilaterally and just off the cuff to do something like that. I think that's really inhumane.
It's almost kind of, I look at it and I'd be like, okay, I understand those peoples want that. I understand he's not good for that country at all. I mean, considering the state of where it is and where it was.
Absolutely.
Obviously, another example of how dictatorship / communism / socialism / whatever you want to package all that stuff together doesn't work. And we always see it happen time and time again. But I almost feel like it's the same thing. It's like why certain presidents and why Trump wants to get himself involved in. It's almost reminiscent of Obama getting himself in trouble all the time with the drone strikes and the Syria stuff and unauthorized. And it's like, it's like Obama would self-inflict himself the same way. I feel almost, but obviously he's a different president and he's scrutinized differently. But I almost feel like this is just like unnecessary to be doing again. And I understand it's under the guise of, but again, if we're taking the same position and the same attitude that we take at the UN, which is, okay, the United States is doing too much. Why are we not all saying, okay, everybody, we understand that Venezuela is in trouble. It's spiraling into crisis. Maduro needs to be removed. We obviously know that. Everyone needs to come together and figure out what we're going to do here to help this country. Because it's going to be a drag on the rest of the world. But instead, we're still asserting some type of imperialistic colonization. And by the way, America is not the only guilty one of doing this. China does it. It's actively doing it.
But we're talking about America and Venezuela in this instance. Yeah.
But in this instance, right, I just want to make sure that we understand that nobody's free of this charge, because that often gets said a lot. Oh, well, America's always the bad guy. No, but it doesn't need to be done. And it's kind of almost like we're creating more geopolitical uncertainty. And I understand the long game that we're trying to play here. But again, why are we creating unnecessarily violent acts? Hey, don't be violent, but then at the same time we're gonna bomb the shit out of people. Great. Hey, I'm okay. Up the Coast Guard and capture these guys up. We don't need, and I understand showing force, but only have to show force in response to force, right? And I understand most people would argue and go, yeah, but we don't even want to give them an opportunity to even fire at us or do any of that stuff. I mean, look, we gotta respond and and if we're immediately opening the door with the forceful stuff like this, again, it just leads to the same old shit. It might fix it now, but 20, 30 years from now, it's going to be the same old thing, because everybody remembers how they were recruited and everybody remembers how they were started. Everyone remembers that. So I think this is one of the instances where I'm like, I can't believe we're going to have another type of proxy shadow conflict / war / all this stuff. And it just irritates me, because as we were driving over back and forth to Louisiana or to New Orleans from Texas, you have to go through Baton Rouge, and the traffic bottlenecks there for an hour. And no matter what time of the day, it always does this. And the reason is because the infrastructure there is from the 50s and the 60s. So then I look at this and I go, oh, great. How much money are we going to spend on this crap versus we could take that money and we could spend it on building 2 or 3 more bridges and updating this one now in America and put more people to work here. And that's what irritates me the most about all of it. I've said it enough now.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. Do you think that the strikes and the justification, because it sounds to me like the justification for those strikes was that there's fentanyl and drugs being trafficked into the United States. And it seems to me like that's a scapegoat to just distract people from all of the real dangers that are really happening here. And I don't know, like if you think about the Epstein files, I'm sure you heard that Kash Patel is now on the hot seat with the FBI and he may be getting fired. And just all of the Republicans and the GOP that are starting to vacate their positions, all of the domestic challenges that are happening, the lack of approval for the presidency and the GOP and what's going on. I wonder if that's a move, because one thing that Americans are united on is, for the most part, is we don't want drugs coming into our country. We don't want people that are pedophiles harming children. There are a few other things, but you can ask a person, regardless of their party affiliation, their race, ethnicity, religion, gender, all of that stuff. They pretty much fall in line on those two issues. So do you think that's just a smokescreen? What do you think is the rationale for taking that action on the part of the Trump administration?
Well, I think that it's a noble cause, or I think it's thought of as to be a noble cause, which is we're going to show force, and we have to show force in certain circumstances. America hasn't shown force in a lot of different ways for a very long time. and that has allowed, say what anybody wants to say, but that allows riffraff to rise up. It does. It really does. And that's just human nature. That's just, it's going to happen no matter what. But in doing so, the way we're doing it, it keeps utilizing that, beating that dead horse again, which is, again, we locked everybody up during COVID because it was for your safety. We're going to take these people out and show force because it's for everyone's safety again, because it's the war on drugs again. We're going back to that same old distraction. It's the same thing as climate change. Climate change isn't cool anymore right now. So we're going to we can popularize striking people because it looks cool on social media, because the drone stuff looked cool too. You know, when we were doing the drone stuff in 2008, 2009, oh my God, look at this American supremacy. We don't even have to have human beings fly jets anymore. Now it's like, oh, we don't bomb the crap out of boats and stop the war on drugs that way without putting the Coast Guard out. It's the same thing. We keep justifying spending resources out to gather resources when we should just continually look in and figure out how to work on ourselves from the inside out again, rather than trying to keep bleeding out and use these big noble causes as an excuse to bomb the shit out of somebody. Because look, there are things that we do that people probably don't like, but they're not bombing the shit out of us. Why? Because we have, like you said,
military might.
We can assert power economically, and we can assert power
militarily,
and we can assert power militarily. And if you don't like it, too bad. And
right.
That's a good thing and a bad thing. But at the end of the day, can we just please just kind of like 80-20 America, and just 80% on us and 20% out, and just kind of like read a memo to the rest of the world and say, look, we love you guys. And I know this is easier said than done. This is pie in the sky, but that thinking needs to be, I think, is what we need. And I know that the world doesn't work that way anymore. It's so interconnected, and we're so, you can't help but become one world society again. So I think what you're seeing the beginning in the state. You're seeing what happens when a global economy that's so connected clashes with a cultural system that's decades, centuries old, that's not ready to come together as fast as the technology and the monetary and the global economy. Supply chain doesn't understand that there are massive groups of people that still don't like massive groups of people and will never like massive groups of people because of their skin color. And people still don't understand that Americans want to drive in their own car for 8 hours down a freeway rather than sitting on a train. We don't want that in America. And rather than push that on Americans, we should just keep embracing what Americans like, which is I want my own big, fat, ugly, nasty, gas-guzzling SUV, and I'll pay the emissions tax on it because I want my family to look cool by themselves in privacy. I don't want to get on a freaking train. And I've ridden trains. I rode trains with you. Beautiful, awesome experience. But at the end of the day, maybe it's the way I was raised and grew up. I can't wait to get in my own car. Just like you can't wait to take a crap in your own you-know-what and sleep in your own bed.
So, all right. So we talked.
I feel like I haven't talked to you in a long time.
It's been a while, man. You were dumping just now. That was good.
But here's the
Pun
thing.
intended.
The annoying thing is, like I said, we use this noble cause to continue to waste our time.
Absolutely. So, okay. So let's transition with that, because the other noble cause in distractions and using military might is what's going on in DC. So when you look at the idea of DC and the vast amounts of crime that was around, at least according to the rationale, we need to bring in the National Guards. Now, National Guards come in. My son even went to DC a few weeks ago, and he said, you know what? DC definitely looks different. He was there for college. He left to go to New York and came back after 2 years. And he said, things did seem a lot quieter there. Now, you have all of a sudden, you have this guy from Afghanistan. He shoots 2 National Guards. One's name is Sarah Backstrom, and the other one was Andrew Wolf. Sarah, only 20 years old, ends up getting killed. And right now, Andrew
passed away.
Yeah. And Andrew's fighting for his life right now, man. So first of all, my heart goes out to the family of both of the victims. And it's just a shame that you can have people wake up one morning. It's the day before Thanksgiving. They're not even 25 years old. They have a full life ahead of them. The idea of maybe getting married, having kids, contributing to our country and to the world at large. And it's cut short just like that for the random act of someone who wants to take action like that. What are your thoughts around that whole thing? Because I think there's a number of layers of conversation and debate we can have, but first wanted to acknowledge the reality that two lives were forever changed and one life was stolen.
Look, it's a sensitive subject no matter how you bring it up. And my heart goes out to those people because they gave their life. They gave their sacrifice. They gave this ultimate sacrifice. And when you go into civil service like that, law enforcement service, National Guard, military service, you know ultimately, right? You sign that contract and you know ultimately. But that's also a big reason why a lot of people, I think, serve, because they know, I mean, that's the biggest thing you could do. So having said that and knowing that happened, you actually have to process this, what's happening with that, because while it is sad and it is a tragedy, I know it could be a cold way to look at it. They died doing what they love to do, which was serving, right? And it's not a way to justify it at all. It isn't, because if it was my son or daughter that was killed like that serving, I would be grief stricken. I would be very heartbroken. I don't know what my reaction would be. I mean, I don't. I can't tell you what, honestly, I could tell you what I think my reaction would be, but I can't tell you because I don't know how I would emotionally react. So having said that, it's a tragedy. I think it is. The bigger tragedy is that they had to become martyrs to highlight what I think is a bigger issue in America is that we have allowed the general consensus in America to shift to that we are not a country of law, and that you could just do whatever you want here and get away with it. There's no respect for civil authority here in America anymore, I don't think. And I think that's the bigger issue, is that we've allowed America to go into this direction in order for the guys and under the operational agency of appeasing people and not hurting their feelings and not disenfranchising them. Let's use the proper Harvard word so that we can alienate all the population because we sound so smart. So therefore, because we sound so smart and we speak so eloquently, we're qualified to think better than you and lead you. That's the political stance that these leaders have taken over the last 30, 40 years that have gotten us in this direction where people just go, fuck it, it's America. You can do whatever you want here. It doesn't matter anymore. So then you get someone like this guy who was brought here under an amnesty asylum program from Afghanistan during the collapsed Biden massacre exit from Afghanistan that he oversaw as an executive, whether it was his administration that started it or came into it, he finished it and he was the executive charged, collapsed it, allowed all these guys to come over to seek asylum, and now these guys are killing people. And not just killing people, they're killing authority figures in America that were brought there to keep people like you and I safe because, yes, D.C., like many other great American cities, does have a crisis, a crime crisis, and a security crisis. Dearborn, Michigan, everybody ought to look into that. I encourage every red-blooded American to look into see what's going on in Dearborn, Michigan right now. Because the attack on America doesn't come from the outside, it comes from the inside. This is a deliberate attack. This is an attack. And it further underscores that the rule of law is not respected inside the interior of the United States anymore. Yes, they do need to be there. And I'll give you an example, Len, and I'll come back at you with it. I was just in New Orleans with my whole family. National Guard was there. My children saw National Guard. I have pictures and videos of my children. Can I go shake their hands? Can I go see the soldiers? Can I go say thank you to them? I've never in my life seen a soldier on America's street with an M4. Only in foreign countries. We're to that point now in America because the types of people that have been allowed in this country and are now infiltrating in this country don't respect the normal civil rule of law. It's a police officer. You got to respect that. And then we've also had these same political people that say that they want to keep cities safe. They've neutered their police departments and not allowed them to do what they need to do because either they don't have the resources to do it and the backing to do it, or they're so afraid to do their job because they're afraid to get thrown in jail. or they're afraid to get prosecuted for for being harsh with somebody. And I know there's right and there's wrong, but I never felt safer walking down the streets of my family because on every corner there was National Guard, and it was weird. Now they were there, but they were not front and center. They were tucked back, like 100 feet, 150 feet off the street, but they were there. I've never seen that before, but it felt safe, and there was no weirdness, and nobody got out of line. Maybe that's what it takes right now for people to realize and understand that we're, like you said, we want safe neighborhoods, no drugs, no pedophilia, no riffraff, nothing. But unfortunately, we've gotten to a point right now in America where I think it's necessary, and there are going to be tragedies like this. I don't think it's a tragedy where we're trying to solve a noble cause. Like, it's not, because those guys aren't there actively being violent. They're there to actively enforce the law. They're there to actively protect the people who are just there to bring in net value to the country. So, however, it's a tough situation no matter where you slice it, because you're performing surgery on someone who just got shot and you need to save them. And it's a delicate surgery because you got to go around here and you're going to nick an artery regardless. You know what I mean? It's like cancer treatment. You got to kill to it's like, I feel like that's the situation. Yeah, it's triage. Yeah. Thank you, Len. Like, yeah, it's just, but I feel both sides of it, but I'm like, I can't say here's why I can't argue it. I guess maybe I can't argue the way it's being done right now because I can't present a pragmatic, intellectual, effective strategy that's better than the one that's being implemented right now, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, I'll try to give you some food for thought. That was a perfect handoff. So, not that you agree.
You respect that, Len, to your level.
I respect it.
Acumen.
I respect it. I respect it. I don't know if you'll agree or not, but here's my pushback on what you have to say. So, I think when you look at a person like Trump and his background in both business and in media, what he has learned is the power of story and of narrative. Story and narrative moves the needle. If you go and you take a look at news agencies that want to push a particular agenda, for example, we need to have more, we need to be tougher on crime. What they'll do is they'll present real statistics that highlight all of the carnage that happens, all of the murders that take place, and all of the unnecessary death that happens. And all of that's real. When you look at the actual crime rates in Washington, D.C., I would recommend you go take a look at it. The crime rates are actually down. Now, when I say that, I'm not suggesting that because they're down, that means that it's non-existent. Crime is a problem in D.C., has been, and it probably will be in the foreseeable future. When you use the narrative that because of the rampant crime that's happening, we have to get the National Guard, people are going to be less resistant to that idea, especially if they're not there, because they're listening to a story. They wouldn't necessarily know that crime is actually down. And so when you bring the National Guard, what that does in certain communities, that raises the tension and raises the temperature because the rhetoric has been raised. And so when I go in a city in the United States, I'm not accustomed to seeing people with M4s and, M16s and automatic rifles. I was when I was in other countries. I didn't feel safe. I felt that there was a real threat, and I was relieved they were there because I felt, okay, the presence of them might deter some type of other activity. But then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, wait, why would they need to be here? You were with me when we were in Spain and went to El Clasico. Remember those big armored tanks outside and the guys standing with those big guns? It made me think, okay, man, we better, because one of the people that was with us when we went, because we were in Madrid and he was talking about wearing The Barcelona
Barca.
shirt. Right. And we're like, no, you can't do that. You can't do that here. Because remember, the guy was explaining to us, a guy walked in the wrong city and he got stabbed because he had the wrong shirt on because he was, celebrating the victory of his team. When I see armed guards and big, gigantic, like military style vehicles, my safety doesn't, my antennas go up and my head becomes on a swivel because I want to see if something's going to pop off. So that's not something that I want in America. That doesn't make me feel safer. And I think, when you go back to this particular story in DC, I'm not here to say that it's failed policy and that's the reason why those two people were shot. On a larger level, I don't like the idea because the Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, National Guard, they're there to protect its citizens, both from foreign and domestic types of concerns, but they're not. The police are created to take care of what's going on inside of our city walls. Military's job isn't for that. Now, if there's a riot, if there's some type of insurrection, absolutely in those instances. But just for the everyday presence of having an armed guard there, an armed person of the military, I don't like that idea at all. And I'll wrap up with this, which is when you look at the need to protect our citizens, you should not use fake statistics and data to justify something you want to do, because crime wasn't going up in DC. It was down. And it's just unfortunate that those two people were killed, because what I don't want to get into the argument of saying, okay, well, if the National Guard weren't there, then those two people wouldn't have been killed, which is true. But that doesn't mean that person wouldn't have gone and shot a police officer.
Somebody else.
So I don't want to create a false equivalence. But it brings into bear just the whole idea of having people in military personnel guarding our streets. I just don't like it.
Yeah, and I'm also the same. And I know we talked about these. I think we talked about crime statistics a few months ago or a couple episodes ago. And there are different ways to skew those numbers to make them favorable in our direction. The general consensus still, I believe, and what we see is that things are pretty weird. You see it. You see an increase in activities of people getting kidnapped, raped, murdered, truck accidents, all different stuff. I mean, it's 17,000 driver's licenses revoked that were supposed to be given to CDL drivers out of California. You're seeing the same problem systemically happen in Pennsylvania. So you're seeing these consistencies throughout the system where we were just free-for-alling and stuff. And it was like, all right, cool, here, go, 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 go. So I don't want that military. I don't think you should. In fact, that's what makes, again, America so special, was that you never saw that in America. You go to foreign countries and you see that, but you don't. But I think we've got to the point right now where people there is absolutely no respect for the rule of law or life, a lot of human life at this point too. And that's just, it's a very sad thing. It's a very, very sad thing. But to sound like you wanted.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
But I was going to say, again, I don't know. I don't know any other way to do it other than to just kind of put the message out there and say, hey, the party's over, dude. The party's over. I mean, that's really all there is to it. Because if the National Guard wasn't there, yeah, something could have happened. But the reality is, the point is still, I think the bigger point still is the fact that somebody had the gall to do that. Someone thought that they were going to be okay to do that it's okay to do that.
Yeah.
That's the biggest problem. Like, it's why, who thinks it's okay to do that? Why, and why would you think it's okay to do that? And how do we allow someone, the thing is like, how do we allow someone like that who wasn't even here to begin with to do that here? We could have stopped it in 2021, but we allowed them here. So that's kind of where we're like, again, the self-inflicted stuff where it's like, we wouldn't need the National Guard there on the streets if we hadn't done X, Y, Z. And again, we can't go back and change the past, but That's my biggest conundrum with it, Len, is like, I don't know any other way to clear these types of people off the streets.
But it's not a problem that is new. And I'm not suggesting that it's okay not to do anything. What I am suggesting is that it's not okay to take disproportionate action. Like I'll give you an extreme example. So imagine we tally up all the deaths and we go back 30, 40, 50 years. Yep. You'll see in the 80s and the 90s, crime was really high. And then after the 90s into the 2000s, crime started to creep down. And then, in the 2000s to, 2010s, it crept back up and it's been on a downward trajectory. But all of those numbers are still high. So my point is that, crime statistics, they ebb and flow depending upon the city, depending upon, what's going on, depending upon, the flow of drugs in different places and the rise of gangs and violence like that, mob activity. There's all different types of crimes depending upon, where you are in the country. So let's say we decided, you know what? We want to justify having surveillance cameras on every corner. We want to justify having, and anytime we walk into the public, we have to make sure that we have all of our fingerprints that are in the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We have our eye prints, and every time we do any type of transaction, we have to go through this device where we put our fingers there, we put our eye scanners on that, just because we have to get rid of crime. And so it's going to keep us all safe. It's going to allow us to, our wives to walk down the streets with their children, and the world will be a whole lot safer. Well, okay. The truth is the world would be safer, but when you have, at what price? You lose your freedom. You lose your ability to be able to go and come as you please. You lose that level of flexibility for the sake of solving crime. That using that same argument, why don't you just take everybody's guns away? Because if you took everybody's guns away, we'd be safer. And so, it's very easy to create a narrative to make people acquiesce, but in that process of acquiescence, we give up our rights and our freedoms, and rights and freedoms do come with the price. I just don't like the direction where the country's going, man. I don't at all.
I don't think the scary, and here's where you and I are going to diverge a little bit. I don't think that what you see now is the scary stuff. I think that's the in-your-face stuff that makes people think of what you're thinking of that was actually happening covertly during COVID. So the stuff that you're afraid of and the stuff you're talking of, you and I are both on the same page. NSA, surveillance, look, we've talked about this before. This here, if you have one of these, everyone knows, they know everything about you. If you have a smartphone, game over already. So stop privacy stuff as it is. All right. That doesn't exist anymore. That world is gone. But the stuff you speak about, the surveillance state, the authority state that you see, this guy, I just read this story. This UK man was on holiday. He was on vacation in Florida, and he took a picture of him firing a shotgun in Florida and posted it on his social media. The police arrested him and seized his computers and his stuff in the UK for months because they thought he had a gun. And posting stuff on that incites violence. That stuff you're talking about, that stuff, that's very anti-American. We know this. We can go back. Privacy is the biggest thing that America has over everybody. So I agree with you. But the stuff we see today that you could say would cause concern of that makes people think that kind of stuff that you're saying is going to happen. But the reality, it was happening during COVID. Because we won't give up our rights quietly, we won't give up our rights loud with a fight like that. We will voluntarily give them away under the guise of some type of technology or some type of betterment of our lives or safety. We will voluntarily do it. It won't happen the way most people think, revolution. That's not going to happen. The powers that be have learned that way too many times. That doesn't work. We don't want it. We don't want that. Nobody wants that. You can't have that anymore. People don't. I think honestly, Len, to transition it, I think the biggest thing, I think with the murders and all this stuff, getting back to crime and stuff and atrocities of the world that happened, because we could talk all day long about all the atrocities that are happening. I mean,
Sure.
we could talk about human trafficking, we could talk about pedophilia, we could talk about prescription over drug gangs, everything.
Yep.
Right? Prostitution. At the end of the day, social media and the internet has just made it more visible. So now we just see more of the atrocities that have been going on because there's nothing new under the sun. What's interesting to me right now is the flip flop back and forth with Candace Owens, and now with the death threats, and Marcone's want him dead, her dead, and
allegedly,
like you got people saying she's crashed out now. But then at the same time, and we've talked about this, there's just too many weird things with Erica Kirk and Teep USA and her history going back to Miss USA, the orphanages in Romania. It almost seems like she was a plant and Kirk was a mark. I don't want to start conspiracies or talk that, but it's just too ugly. And now you've got her, and she's going to...
Her Erica or her Candace?
No, Candace. Now you got Candace gotcha. With the craziness here. Where are you at with this stuff, man? She had to take a week off or something like that. Like she couldn't do something for a week because it was just where are you at with this stuff?
Yeah, so she sent out a social media post saying that she's going to take time off because of a confirmed death threat. And the White House reached out to her and said, hey, there's some concerns that we have about your life, and you should probably lay low for a little while. So there's some interesting information out there. So there's a guy by the name of Ham Braverman of New Jersey, and he posted a video holding a steel bat, and he was threatening to kill this political commentator. And then Candace went out and said, you know what? I'm that political commentator. Then you have the Macrons that, allegedly put a hit out on her life and all of these things. I just think when you look at the clash and the conflict that people have because of social media and our different platforms we can use to voice our beliefs, our values, our assumptions, our opinions. I think sometimes when that voice becomes too powerful or too widespread, and they say something that they know could influence that tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and potentially millions of people, oftentimes those are the voices that get silenced. And I think that's a real problem. Unfortunately, just like we talked about with crime, that's not anything old, and that's always going to be something that exists as long as we have this thing called human nature. And so, even, depending upon what type of platform you have and what kinds of conversations you have, the bigger you get, the more exposure you get. And there's always going to be people who disagree with what you say, regardless of the position you take. You could take the complete opposite position that you present to the world, and you'll have another group of people mad at you. And so, to me, I think she needs to be very, very, very careful about what she says and what she does. But regardless of the issues that I've had and that I've expressed about her, some of her views, I applaud her for taking a principled stand. And she's saying, look, Charlie was my friend, and I'm going to continue to push the envelope until we find the truth. I respect that. I respect that in a big way, because there's so many people, once they are put in a compromising position or threatened to be compromised, then they back off. And so I respect the stance she's taking here. And I hope that she's going to be safe, because we need voices on every side of the aisle, and we need people that search for truth. And like I've said many times before, and I'll say many times again, each side of the aisle will agree with some positions I take and disagree with some positions I take, because I don't take a a party stance. I'm searching for truth, and that's it. And that's, in this case, that's what she's doing. And I respect that she's doing that. And I hope that she's safe. And I hope she ultimately gets to the bottom of what it is that she's looking for.
Yeah, it almost kind of makes me think that number one, I mean, kudos to her. She's got some,
Yeah.
because she doesn't have, she probably has private security, but she doesn't have like a wherewithal to have like a security detail like Elon Musk has, I mean, or a presidential security, or even a congressional security detail is probably, is pretty beefy. I don't know. I mean,
she's probably got a couple of security guards here and there, but
still, dude, if
the government wants you taken out, they can take you out.
Bro, if they want you, they want you. So yeah, I mean that. But does it make it seem like, regardless of what she says or how she says it, whether it's proven or not, and truth and all that stuff, and getting to the bottom of it, is it a 50-50 split between people who just look at it and go, oh, it's automatically a conspiracy theory, or the other versus the other people that go, nah, you know what I mean? And you're either in one of those camps, and you're either going to go down either side of it until one side is proven. The challenge I have with it is that if something is an accusation, if something is accused, you accuse somebody or something of that. Number one, you have to have evidence, right? And she has evidence, right? And she's making accusations with evidence. And then at that point, the defending party, has to say, well, I don't have to do anything because I haven't done anything wrong. Really, mind your damn business, right? In this case, mind your business. Like, whose business? What business?
So I want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying. Are you saying the accusations of the alleged party that wants her dead? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, whatever accusations she makes in general, whether Brigitte
is
a man or a woman, that's
in
one
general.
of her biggest things. Whether Charles was really assassinated by Tyler Robinson, or it was somebody, it was an Israeli asset. Name anything.
So you're speaking in general. Okay, gotcha. I'm with you
like,
now.
for example, if I accused you of something, you could say, you're crazy, Chris, go away, right? I don't have to answer you. I'm not hurting anybody until something else comes and accuses you, right? Or you could reply back immediately and clear your name and show the receipts. So the challenge I have is that if you have the receipts, why don't you just put this crap to bed so early and just put the receipts out there to the people who are accused?
Yeah, and in that instance, I think it could totally go away. What do you think it would take tomorrow? With what?
Hey,
if Erica comes on and says, you know what, I'm going to be on your show. We're going to sit down. We're going to have a 2, 3, 4 hour conversation. We're going to go through this because I want the same thing as you. I want to find out what happened to my husband. It'd go away tomorrow.
Why doesn't that happen? So see, that's the problem people have. That's what creates the issue for the other side, that it says it's a conspiracy. And whether or not the people that on the other side say it's a conspiracy are only 30% of the total whole or 40%, at this point in the world, the problem that we're having now is that too many people don't believe the facts that are being given anymore. And because the facts there's too much reasonable doubt within the facts now. So that means we just need to sprinkle a little bit more of the receipts in the world today.
Exactly.
They show the facts are 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 the facts. Just like, and I know this irritates a lot of people on the extreme left, a man is a man and a woman is a woman. And a man can't have a child. Sorry, it doesn't work that way. It never will. It never has. It can't. Unless you figure out how to take the role of God or whatever, or you become a wizard and you can take a shot that changes your sex overnight or brings you back. It just doesn't work.
Correct.
And even if you could figure it out, I guarantee you, because I say it all the time, at the back door of it, guess what there is? Something that we don't know about because we think we're so smart that's going to go, error, that doesn't work. And then we end up seeing a problem that we've never, ever seen because we're not supposed to do that. Right? You get what I'm saying,
exactly.
Right?
It's like the Tower of Babel. Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Say that again?
I said it's just like the Tower of Babel, in the Bible where
explain that.
Yeah, so they were building a building, and the goal was to build that building all the way up to heaven. And so God was like, we're not doing that. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. And that's really where all of the different languages emerged, because, he struck down the building collapses, and people, started speaking in different tongues, and it's scattered, those people scattered around the world. So, when we start trying to mess around and become God, or to try to get on the same level as God, I believe that God said there shall be no other God before me. And, we can talk about AI in another episode, and how, people are trying to replace God with that. But getting back to this whole Erica and Candace Owens situation, there's so many different pieces of evidence that she's produced: video evidence, and she's also produced text receipts. Like, all of the things that she's putting out there, she's putting receipts on it. And so,
Yeah.
and the issue is like this, there's another, there's more people that were part of the CIA. They're saying that guy who they're alleging that shot Charlie Kirk, there's so many inconsistencies. So in one shot, he has a black backpack, and another shot, he has a blue backpack. He has 3 or 4 different wardrobe changes. You have this the type of the rifle that he had. How could you transport and walk around with that on your person? And then 2 different pictures. There's 2 guys that have, a similar build, maybe similar height, but you can look at their face and they don't look like the same person. There's all of these challenges and problems and inconsistencies, from the head of security doing all of this stuff and, pressing the Ray-Ban glasses, and you see a light twinkle, and then there's a shot that gets fired. He bends over. It looks like he moves something from the table. The other guy comes and removes the camera from the back of the table. It's just, and then he gets on his phone right when the shot happens. Like, all of these challenges and issues that we can see with our own eyes, they're not being answered. And so because of that, it raises all of these concerns. And so I think that there is some legitimacy to something bigger happening, which is why her life is on the line, in my opinion.
Because you wouldn't threaten somebody like that unless there was. And here's the thing, the reality behind it all, right? There's a natural instinct, right? Humans have natural instincts that we're born with. When something's, you just go, but you're just,
that's right.
It's just weird. It's just weird. So, I mean, here's the thing that most people will never really ever going to know. We're not. And you're right. There's too many inconsistencies. There's too many weird things out there. And we'll see. Time will tell. I pray for her, and I hope that everything works out for her. But I think what's bigger here today, right now, for a lot of people too, is that because the mob rules, right? And that's what people mostly, because no one's asking what's going on with the Charlie Kirk investigation. No one's asking. Remember when O.J. Simpson was on trial? That crap was on TV everywhere, baby boy. Like, that stuff was everywhere.
Trial of the century.
Why is nobody questioning this? It's just going to be one of those, he was found guilty and it's done with. Oh, God. And that's it. So, I mean,
I don't think that's going to happen, though. I think because
it looks that way. When's the last time it's been in the news? When's the last time you've seen anything about it in the news?
I would say it's not in mainstream media, but I would say on more independent outlets, there's still a lot of people questioning the legitimacy of all of the facts. And so I think if you go down the rabbit hole, you'll see it. I would agree. It's not mainstream. That's right. And I think that's going to be the death of mainstream media. The fact that there are stories out there that people care about, that people want to know more about, but because the news cycle moves so quickly, they move on. And I think the ability to be able to turn to a channel or a podcast or a media outlet that feeds you the information you're interested in, that's going to become the death of mainstream media. I give it 15 to 25 years. I think there'll be
they know They know it. You know why? They know it. You know why? Because if you look at the top 10 podcasts across all different types of platforms, they're mostly all mystery and crime dramas. All of them. I think the number 1, number 2 podcast is I can't remember the name of it. I don't want to plug it, but it's a crime podcast. It is. It's very popular. I listen to it all the time, and it was introduced to me by a friend of mine. So, in switching though, I mean, look. I think the biggest story that a lot of people aren't facing or aren't looking at right now is the fact that HP just announced again is expecting to cut another 4,000 to 6,000 jobs. So many. I mean, I have stuff here I was going to share. I was going to talk to you about just the job losses. Obviously, 2025 has reached 1.1 million as of October, already higher than 2024's total of 761. So if you just count October and not the rest of the year, so no November, no December, and you look at job cuts, this is a scary thing. I don't think I've remember seeing job cuts this big in a long time, right?
You're talking about domestic cuts as a whole, right?
Yeah, U.S. job cuts. That's almost 2 million job cuts. That's almost 2 million job cuts. And for most who go, a lot of government jobs because Trump was elected. There were 761,000 last year. Okay? And then when you look at it, California is 158,000. That's one of the highest. Texas, 46,000. Florida, 22,000. New York, 81,000. Obviously, DC, 303,000. Government stuff. You're just seeing job cuts everywhere, all over the United States. Not so much the central part of it, but mostly the tech stuff. A lot of the tech stuff. And there can just continue 20,000 Amazon, Microsoft, all these guys. And you still got Michael Burry out there pushing that AI bubble. And he's trying to pin NVIDIA as the Cisco, right, of the .com era. Job cuts are huge right now because you also saw Tri-Loan or Tricolor. It was like the biggest subprime auto lender just filed for bankruptcy. So you see a lot of these consistencies that are starting to happen here. Job cuts to me are the most important thing because that's people not being able to pay their notes, their credit card debts, and debt's already high anyways. So that I think is a bigger thing and a bigger issue looking forward to going into 2026 to see if are we going to really actually have a recession year, an active recession year. And inflation's still high. It went up by 0.8 or something to that effect. Where are you at, Len?
So when you look at job losses from the outside, it's very easy to throw numbers around because it's just statistical data points. What I try to think about is the husbands and wives that are mothers and fathers or young professionals that are trying to make a living in today's economy. And it's hard enough to make it when you're working. It's a whole thing entirely different when you have job insecurity and you're in a position where you lose your job entirely. Quick anecdote. My son has 3 roommates. They live in New York. And in the course of his 5 years being out there, the only person that hasn't lost their job is him. He's the only person. And so that shows, like, anecdotally, 3 out of 4 jobs in his household were lost. And so imagine the economic strain that causes. And so what ended up happening is he ended up having to come back and stay with us for a while. And thankfully, the type of job he has, he could work remotely. You know, it's a hybrid type of a position. Do
you mind sharing the industry? Do you mind sharing?
He's in tech. And he works for a multinational company. And his other colleagues that he's a roommate with, one is a major retail company, and the other 2 are in the tech space as well. And so it's interesting that, you know, you bring up the fact that people are losing their jobs and this whole idea of job insecurity. You know, it's a real challenge. And so I think when we talk about the whole idea of where the economy is shifting, you asked about recession. Are we headed towards that? I think if you look at the cost of food and you look at the lack of housing and you look at the amount of jobs that are lost and you look at job insecurity because of AI, we can talk about recession being 2 consecutive downward, cycles in the stock market. I think that's a sanitized definition. I think if you ask everyday people, do you feel better off this time right now than you did last year? And do you feel better off that time last year compared to the year before? I would say overall, there's a downward trend. And I think you could take that same downward trend and go back 10, 15 years because again, our children, so I'm Gen X, our children is the first generation in over a century, in over a century at least, where our children would be better off financially, economically than we were. And I think it speaks to an overall problem that we need to begin to address. And that address is we have to find other ways to be even more productive, to be able to find ways to cut down the proliferation of these price hikes that are going out of control relative to the amount in which people are getting paid. And we've got to really find a way holistically to address that domestically. And I'll end with this. I think when we talk about tariffs creating manufacturing jobs, I don't think that's the answer. We've talked about that on previous episodes. We have to find other creative ways to be more productive. I think we need to look at more incentives for small businesses to be able to pay their workers a fair wage, but without having to lose their ability to have excess buying power. And what I mean by that is if a car this year is $5,000 more expensive than it was last year, but my pay only went up by $1,000. If you take that and aggregate it out, the quality of my life is going down over time. So we are in a recession based on that definition. And so I think we're already in one.
I think you're absolutely right. And I don't want to use any of the traditional, well, these 2 times and these things happen in the 2 markets, like you said. But here's the reality. All fiat currencies go down. But this is pretty interesting. In 1930, a dollar would buy you 30 Hershey bars. Okay. In 1929, a dollar would buy you 10 rolls of toilet paper. In 1933, you could buy 10 bottles of beer with $1.
Wow.
$1 for 10 bottles of beer. In 1944, you could buy 20 bottles of Coca-Cola. In 1953, you could buy 10 bags of pretzels with $1. In 1964, you could buy a drive-in movie ticket. In 1971, you could buy 17 oranges. In 1987, you could buy 2 boxes of crayons. Crayons are like $8 right now. It's ridiculous. In 1997, you could buy 4 grapefruits. In 2008, you could buy 2 lemons. 2020, 1 McDonald's coffee. Today, you know what $1 gets you? 1 packet of great value gummy worms.
Wow. And that won't be the case 1 year from now.
No, it will not. It will not. It will not. And that is the crisis that people face today. And I think it was something where, like, if you look at the average baby boomer with the average household income and the average expenses during their time, their peak time, it wasn't all easy and sunshine and rainbows for them either. They still had like a deficit of like $200 or $150, $80 a month or something.
But that was with one income.
Right. Today, when you compare it, there's a deficit of $2,300
with 2 incomes,
with 2 people working. So you're like, how the heck? And then that obviously further erodes the family unit. 2 parents raising a child. You have daycare. And daycare is really a big cost for a lot of people. But I think right now we're at this precipice where, again, we have technology and we have economies that are trying to converge that are converging on old moral beliefs and cultural beliefs and different tribal things that are still very real that will never allow those things to fully integrate. And you're seeing that backlash. You're seeing that. And people are frustrated. People are very tense. They're very frustrated. They are extremely. But what I can say is I'm extremely proud of the fact that there wasn't any widespread craziness when Snap was delayed. That was pretty encouraging to see that, considering it was. But I could definitely tell you that you just kind of get a sense that it's like, you know what I'm saying? And I
tension.
think that there is tension, but there is also that opportunity on the table right now where it's with the job cuts and everything. It's mostly tech. We'll see if there's going to be a bubble. I mean, Michael Berry's really putting his reputation out there a lot on that. There's a lot of big names that say there isn't. Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, is like out there full in force in front of it. So he is putting the receipts out there too. But we'll see, what happens. We're in a different landscape. So maybe the methodology he's using is not the same as it was or doesn't apply to today's market as it did. But you still can't help the fact that you've got the same 5 or 6 big companies that are all swapping the same money amongst each other. They're all buying. So but people do need relief. People do need relief. And I know Trump was talking about considering pushing it to extend affordable health care, which isn't that the subsidies that the Democrats killed themselves over with the government
That's
shutdown?
exactly what it was.
Is he coming in and doing an Uno reverse on them and stealing their thunder and going to come in and say, look at Len, you'd be so happy if he did that, right? And he was successful at it. And we go, look what Daddy got you. Daddy's bringing home the bacon right now.
Yeah, that's a funny topic because, okay, on the one hand, he does take the thunder by extending it, but on the other hand, I believe the reality is he doesn't have another plan that's better, and so
I don't think anybody has it. Well, I gave a great plan. Deducted from my FICO or my self-employment tax, if you're claiming it that way, or my Social Security deduction. Give me a tax credit no matter what. Right?
Yeah, okay. So what's going on right now with that whole thing is that, the White House, they have this draft and they're talking about, they're going to extend the ACA subsidies for 2 years. And so we're talking about 26, 27 and a new income cap for subsidies. And it says one with the options that are around 700% of the poverty level. And so to me, I have a feeling that Trump recognizes that there is no better plan in place right now. And, I think when you could look at that 2 ways. One is you could say, okay, well, the Affordable Care Act really was an effective way to reduce the cost for healthcare, and it gave more access to more people to have healthcare. And because it was so effective, he didn't have any other options because.
Let me stop you right there for a second.
Okay.
Let me ask you this question. Okay, before you go in more to affordable healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
Did affordable healthcare just slow it from becoming more expensive? So if we didn't have affordable healthcare, would healthcare just have been more expensive than it is today? Did it just prevent healthcare from getting more expensive? So do you understand what I mean?
I understand what you're saying. There's two layers. Go ahead.
Affordable healthcare passed what in 2009? When it's been around for a long time, right? 2010, 2011, right around there.
I can find out.
I want to say is when the game changed, right? Has healthcare had not continuously gotten more expensive every year since it's been implemented? It has.
Yeah.
So my biggest question, and I remember back in my working days, I remember every year.
It was signed into law on March 23rd, 2010.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense because that's right when everyone was going, oh, you can't sell health insurance anymore because there's no money in it. Right?
But it didn't take effect until 2014. So it went into law 2010, passed on 2014. So it's been a little over 10 years.
So I always remember getting hauled into the HR meetings every year and going, hey, congratulations, your health. In fact, I remember the guy who talked to me, he's Tom Kirsten. Here, sign your new benefits package. Congratulations. It went up by $280 this year. It's the world we live in. That was back in like 2002. So my question then is that once affordable healthcare got passed, healthcare continued to go up every year like it has been. So my question is, before we go back even more into why affordable healthcare is so effective, is the most effective part of, and I'm just asking for clarity because to me it hasn't made healthcare any more affordable. Has it just slowed the increase of the price every year? Because it still goes up every year. So without affordable healthcare, would be 20% more expensive today than it really should be? I'm just guessing. I don't know.
Okay, good question.
I don't know if you know, Len. I just like. So do you know? I mean,
I do. I do have an idea. I have an idea. So there are two elements of the Affordable Care Act that changed the landscape of healthcare, and one is that there were people with pre-existing conditions that didn't have access to healthcare. So one thing that the Affordable Care Act did.
Now that is important. I will sign off and say that should have been its own separate piece of legislation, because you shouldn't throw someone out automatically with health insurance. Now, life insurance, I get.
Sure.
But health insurance, bro, this is 2025.
Right, exactly.
Like, we're not going to let someone sick and die when we can afford to build what we build in America. And that comes back to a sovereign wealth fund that should take care of people.
Yes. And so, even before the Affordable Care Act happened, if somebody gets shot or if somebody has a heart attack, hospitals by law can't not take care of you. They can't go and perform surgery and try to save your life. The issue was more for chronic health conditions like cancer and things like that.
You shouldn't be dinged against that. So, for example, if you're born autistic, that should not be a knockout for you. Now, if you have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease because you have cirrhosis because you drink every night, that's
different for
you, right?
I agree.
Right. But that I agree with. The figure that out, that should be its own separate piece of legislation.
Okay.
Sorry, man. I just thought it was more important to kind of dissect that as you were going through it.
Absolutely. So one was giving more people access to care. The other part was subsidizing the cost of care. And so the reason why the Affordable Care Act was so controversial is because one side of the aisle was saying this is costing too much money to subsidize healthcare. And because of that, it's going to add money to the deficit. It's going to be another entitlement program, and it's going to be like a runaway freight train. So to answer the other part of your question is that healthcare does continue to go up, because just like the cost of food goes up, the cost of, a doctor's wages goes up, the cost of the medical related device or machinery and all of that stuff. So all of the costs that factor into what we call healthcare, which is the whole ecosystem of providing care for someone else, all of those costs go up. So that doesn't stop it, but the subsidies stop the rate in which the costs go up. So if those subsidies are therefore removed, now people don't have that buffer to be able to have a lower or lesser impact of the cost. And now they're facing the full brunt of all of the healthcare costs. So what that does is, if I'm spending more money on my healthcare, and we're talking like the basic essentials. We're not talking like cosmetic surgery. We're not talking about, concierge level of care. Really, the whole purpose of affordable care is to make it more affordable for the masses. And if you remove that, then they're going to end up having to pay significantly more. And so the problem is that because of the size of the country, because a lot of people, what they do as they try to compare us to like Norway and Finland. Well, they have fantastic care, but they have a fraction of the size. That. You can't. Yes, the scale changes the delivery system
dramatically.
Right.
I remember in business when I was being brought up in business, one of my first mentors in business, and she was telling me, she taught me scale, and she's like, she was teaching me unit costs. I was like, oh, let's get these chairs. She's like, we can't get those because you got to understand that we have to buy 150 of them. And so you got to look at all these different things in your run. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's right. Because it's great. We can get these awesome chairs if there was 10 of us, because there's 30 of us, we can't get them anymore. We have to scale things. So you're absolutely right. You can look at that stuff in a different country, and it just doesn't work over here because of the scale of things.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so in order to solve that problem, and when I'm talking about the problem, I'm talking about not only affordability, I'm talking about access, I'm talking about the quality of care, but then also monitoring the people and the industries that impose these hefty prices, because, the cost of surgery is astronomical. It can get into the millions of dollars. It costs tens of thousands of dollars just to have a baby. And so for insurance companies, if they're having to pay these exorbitant prices, so if I'm a doctor, let's just take it down so we can break it down. So let's say I'm a doctor and I want to game the system. And I have the ability to operate with a large group of doctors, and together we can game the system. So what we say is, okay, pharmaceutical industry, instead of charging $10 for this pill, charge $100 for this pill. You get kickbacks. I get kickbacks, and we'll pass the cost over to the insurance companies. So we don't have any built-in incentive to lower the price, because you can so somebody who's uninformed could say, okay, well, we're in a capitalistic system. Why don't we just allow the markets to compete? Well, the problem is that the cost for care isn't typically borne out of private pay. We typically get it paid through our employer, who has group insurance. And so the insurance companies are footing the bill. And so because insurance companies are footing the bill, then it doesn't incentivize doctors, surgeons, pharmaceutical agencies, people who make beds and all of the other medical, furniture and devices and all that. It doesn't incentivize them to keep their prices low, because the cost isn't borne by the individual. So there's a glitch in that system. And because of that, it allows all of this greed and the desire to make a ton of money on certain products and services, because other companies are going to bear that price. But ultimately, we pay the price because our insurance premiums go up, our co-pays go up, and all of those things happen. So it's this negative reinforcing cycle. And so to be able to have a plan that attacks all of those fronts simultaneously is very, very difficult. And the Affordable Care Act so far has been the best way to attack that problem in America. Now, we don't have a better care system than Norway and Finland. They pay a lot more in their taxes, but because they have a smaller population, they get better care and they're not having to deal with the same types of challenges. So far, there isn't a better system. And I think there's room for it, but right now it doesn't exist.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think America is great at acute medical care, and that's it. And when it comes to holistic planning, pre-planning, preventative care, we do not. We are. But again, that goes hand in hand. It's a package deal with our system, and the way it is. Look, you have the right to do whatever you want. So if you want to go drink alcohol every day, you can. And that, I don't want to go back into it, but that again, kind of, I take a very libertarian view on substance like that, for alcohol and drugs. Like, dude, if you want to let someone do cocaine, let them do freaking cocaine. And prohibition is a very strong argument. For why
you can't legislate morality.
Stuff. You know what I mean? Because look what happened when you had prohibition. It didn't work. And ultimately they made alcohol legal. And obviously alcohol is still controlled in a certain way, right? But you could still, look, the government's sending people and giving methadone needles anyways. Why do we still have it? Why is it? I've said this before on this show. Just legalize the crap and control it and collect the tax revenue on it. Well, what are we doing here? But again, we lose one of our distractions or one of our moral wars to throw resources and a champion behind, which is the war on drugs, right? And the war on poverty and the war on healthcare. There's always a war on this. And that's the problem, is there's always a war with politicians. There's never a resolution to anything. Because again, politicians are incentivized to keep their jobs, to create problems, to make more to make them seem like they need more stuff to do. The reality is we don't. Let Elon Musk do all, and those types of people, and the Bill Gates and whoever you like, whether you're a Bill Gates guy or an Elon Musk guy, because they're both on the side, different sides of the political arena, right? Whether you're a Bill Gates guy or you're an Elon Musk guy, let those guys create. Mm-hmm. Let the people that want to put everything on the line create opportunities and jobs for people, because at the end of the day, if we don't have movers and shakers, we don't have producers, we don't have of the world, like in Atlas Shrugged. If you go and read that book, I encourage everybody to read that book. When you don't have people that go out there and create and build, you don't have opportunities for the rest of the people that don't want to go out there and do those things.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, and just like the DMV, I don't think healthcare should be left to the government, but I also believe that there should be a safety net for people who don't have the capacity 100%. To take care of themselves. And so it's a very difficult idea to tackle. And, because there's different beliefs about how people's care should be managed. And, some people say it should be completely privatized, and other people say that's the government's job and role. And I don't think there's any one right answer. I think it's a little bit of both. I think the government has a role, but I think there should be more private money and private ingenuity that goes into solving the problem. So
I agree. And here's the other thing, and then I'll turn it over to you, Len, for any last words to close this out. Here's my last thoughts on that. You also have the opportunity to go and make as much money as you want and have complete control over your level of care, because you have built a fortune for yourself. So that to me is like, if you have the ability to do, that's why America's great, because you could do that. Please make that opportunity and that freedom easy for people. Don't make it harder. Make it easier for people to do that. And because we did. America succeeded because we made that easy. Go frontier, go build, be a net resource to the country, and we will reward you for it. That's what drives. Mm-hmm. That's what drives ingenuity, supremacy, friendships, country pride, because we did it all together, and we don't have this government trying to take it from us to give to these causes that we don't, whether we think they're noble or not. We should have a choice whether we want to participate in those noble causes. So last words, Len. Yep. I'll give it out to you. It's always a pleasure, sir.
Likewise. I think, yes. So one thing that Chris and I really want to do is we want to inform people who want to be critical thinkers, who want to have the freedoms to go out and live their life, not based on what other people tell them or what other people constrain them to do. And so the reason why we do this podcast is we want to have open debate. We want to have open conversations. We want to have dissenting opinions, so you can take what you get out of it, so you can make your own decisions, so you can think critically. Because as AI gets more and more mainstream, critical thinking is going to become a commodity, because we're taking our thoughts and putting it into these different programs to think for us. And so we need platforms like this, and we need people like you to think for yourself, to be critical thinkers, to disagree and agree. And don't take a position that somebody has, if you like them or dislike them, and think that everything they say is right or wrong, because that's not true for anybody. And so we really want you to go out, put yourself in a position to go out and earn money, so you can have the freedom to make all the choices that make your life better. And so with that being said, Chris, it's always a pleasure having a conversation with you. And those of you out there that are watching this, please feel free to comment, like, subscribe, and tell somebody else about it, so we can engage in public discourse, regardless of the side of the aisle you rest on. Take care, everybody.
Len, have an awesome week, sir.
You too, brother.
Conversation has given you clarity on your next steps. Please share this episode with someone who's walking the same path. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. And remember, planning ahead isn't just prudent, it's an act of care. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Family Office.